I'm just going to pick up where I left off.
In the name of the American people. Tomorrow at this time, it's possible, it is likely that we could be covering widespread protests, and possibly there's some talk that we could also be covering some general strikes in some parts of the country. There's a third front, our justice system. Just in the last 24 hours, judges in separate cases have acted decisively to try to rein in the seeming impunity of Donald Trump's immigration policies and authorities. In one instance, a federal judge in Minnesota ordered the beings, including American citizens, in the name of the American people. Tomorrow at this time, it's possible, it is likely that we could be covering widespread protests, and possibly there's some talk that we could also be covering some general strikes in some parts of the country. There's a third front, our justice system. Just in the last 24 hours, judges in separate cases have acted decisively to try to rein in the seeming impunity of Donald Trump's immigration policies and authorities. In one instance, a federal judge in Minnesota ordered the government to cease detaining and deporting refugees who were lawfully admitted to our country and immediately release those currently held for re-examination of their cases. In another, a federal judge picked ICE apart. That judge said that ICE has violated nearly 100 court orders as part of what they're branding as an aggressive crackdown. From that ruling, quote, "This list of violated court orders should give pause to anyone, no matter his or her political beliefs, about who cares about the rule of law. ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence."
Just
ICE is
off
not
the
a
chain.
law unto itself. ICE has every right to challenge the orders of this court, but like any litigant, ICE must follow those orders unless and until they are overturned or vacated. These three buckets, these three avenues of pressure are clearly registering with Donald Trump and the White House. As part of that game of chicken we talked about, Donald Trump is going about some subtle changes to his immigration language and his enforcement policies as the pro-democracy forces in America muster their might ahead of tomorrow and whatever comes next. That is where we start today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. Publisher of The Bulwark, host of the Focus Group podcast, Sarah Longwell, is here. My friend and colleague, senior political analyst, contributing host of Pod Save America, host of the podcast Runaway Country, Alex Wagner is back with us. And former top DOJ official, legal analyst Andrew Weissman's here as well. Sarah Longwell, let me start with you. What do you see happening in the country in terms of the public mood?
Adobe Acrobat Studio is all new. What can PDF spaces with AI do? Do a sales invoice good enough to eat? Adobe Express brings the heat. Now we're talking. It's time to share. Every page, every doc, everything's right there. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat.
I listen to voters week in and week out in focus groups, and I cannot overstate how big of a shift there has been on just Minneapolis. And one of the things I want to start out with is just the fact that everybody knows what is happening. I talk a lot about what it takes to break through in this noisy information environment. Voters often, we will be talking about something on the show or in Washington, and voters won't have heard about it. Not only has everybody heard about these shootings, but everybody's seen the videos. They've examined them for themselves. And people were already deeply uneasy after the shooting of Renee Good. But to have a second shooting with Alex Preddy, where I got to say, for voters, the Preddy shooting is just much more clear cut. They looked at the Renee Good one, and people were able to tell themselves, well, she was in the car, and how was the car turning? The masked agents, 6 of them jumping on Alex Preddy, shooting him in the back, him clearly having his hands up, just trying to defend a woman that an ICE agent had shoved into the snow, has created a really different environment where people are now saying they are fed up with these sort of over zealousness of these ICE agents, the fact that they're paroling the streets in masks, and look, obviously, hardcore Trump voters, many of them will stick with him on this, but the vast majority of the country is just reaching kind of a tipping point on not only do they think this is wrong, what is happening, right? They hired Trump to secure the border. They hired Trump to deport dangerous criminals from the country, but they did not want this, people in our streets. The other thing is, Donald Trump is not doing the thing that voters hired him to do the most, right? If the economy was booming and people's prices were going down, sometimes voters can forgive Trump for a lot of the things he does in that context. But at a time when Trump is not addressing their concerns and he's creating chaos in the streets and they're shooting Americans, that's when you start to see public opinion really start to move.
Sarah Longwell, the child separation practice has been, thanks to people like Jacob Soboroff and other great journalism and activists, has been part of the Trump story. But to your point, people are now focusing in on the plight of young children like Liam Ramos, who was used, not just detained in Minneapolis, but used as bait to lure out other family members at a time when, to your point, everyone has seen the images of how Alex Putty was killed. I wonder if the whole project of going after the worst of the worst has now been blown apart as a lie.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a few lies, actually, that American voters understand. And again, I just can't overstate how interesting it is to me to hear Trump voters, and many of the people we've been talking to have been Trump voters, talking about Ramos, talking about, I mean, they know these stories. And many of them are calling for Kristi Noem to be impeached or gotten rid of, which I was actually pretty surprised to hear Trump voters saying. Now, these are swingier voters, people who went from Biden to Trump, but they say that this idea of using kids as bait, of going into schools, of going into churches, these are the kinds of things that Americans reject. They say, yes, get dangerous criminals, but somebody who's been here for 20 years, like, don't come into our streets and start dragging our neighbors out. Like, they want a policy solution to it, but they do want people to be treated humanely. Like, the American people have not lost every sense of what is decent and what is right. And they think that using kids as bait is wrong. Separating kids from their families is wrong. That was true in the Trump first administration, and it's true now.
Give me a minute.
Sir, I think we have some footage from your focus groups. Let me play that for our viewers.
Whenever there's a highly publicized police shooting, and it's getting publicized because there's questions over whether it was a good shoot, I think in law enforcement there's usually well, you have to put yourself in that moment. You have to understand they're making a quick decision. You have to understand, like, law enforcement is usually quick to, I don't want to say defend, but kind of explain or justify why it was a good shoot or a bad shoot. And over the last few weeks, months, year, it's getting harder and harder for people around me to have, like, a good faith conversation about why something was a good shoot. I don't know anybody who saw the video, the most recent one in Minneapolis.
ICE single-handedly set police back easily 100 to 50 to 100 years, easily. I'm glad that I medicaled out, because I would kind of hate to be a cop right now, because you're dealing with, because what one badge does, everybody gets blamed for it.
Now, Sarah, explain who these voters are.
Yeah, so we just did this group last night, and these are law enforcement officers. Some of them are correctional officers, many of them are beat cops, some of them are federal law enforcement, but they're all people who have operated in law enforcement communities, and they did all vote for Kamala Harris. We are doing two groups. We're going to do another one tonight of people who, let's say, are more Trump-friendly, and we'll see how different those are. But in this particular group, it wasn't just that they were all talking about how this made law enforcement look bad, how it broke trust with the people that they're supposed to be protecting. You could also just feel like they were sad. They were devastated by what was happening. Like, they're cops who feel like their duty is to protect people. And I think watching, especially for law enforcement, and I think you're going to hear more of this, watching people who are not trained, who treat people horribly, who shoot quickly and thoughtlessly and taking American lives and creating chaos in the streets, they view that as something that is going to, because ICE are not the same, right, as the police officers that we deal with every day, or Border Patrol is not the same, but they feel like what it is going to do is break the trust between the American people and law enforcement writ large, and that's something that you can't just get back in a day.
Joining us, the Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner of Virginia. Senator, thank you for being here. First off, why is Tulsi Gabbard there? What could she have to do with this case?
Okay, Katie, I want to get to Tulsi, but let me just say about the raid itself. Your previous reporter is right. You can try to get a search warrant. But there are two facts that also ought to be reported on this bizarre raid. One is that it's been reported, at least, that the FBI head of the field office in Atlanta, which includes Fulton County, has suddenly either quit or been fired. So to me, that smells like the local FBI guy didn't think this passed muster. And we need to get the answer on that. And traditionally, when you bring a search warrant like this, the person who is prosecuting the case is the local U.S. attorney. Well, the U.S. attorney that signed on this search warrant to go to the judge is the U.S. attorney from Missouri. So if you talk about something that, at least at the front end, smells really bad, and the concern from the local officials about what is going to happen to their election returns and data, this thing stinks.
Yeah, it stinks.
Then we get to Tulsi Gabbard. And again, your reporters are right. Her job is to look at foreign interference in our elections and to oversee all of the bad guy efforts in terms of spying. And the remarkable thing that needs to be reinforced to all of your listeners and viewers is that Tulsi Gabbard, over this last year, has literally taken apart what was called the Foreign Malign Influence Center, the center inside the intelligence community that was supposed to look at potential voter interference. Because again, she's still been an election denier. She is a sycophant that Donald Trump. The speculation, at least up here on the Hill,
they went too
is
far.
that she's done such a dreadful job that she's been excluded from most of the national security activities of the last couple months. She's never been up there to brief, on Venezuela, Iran, or Greenland, you name it. And maybe this is some feeble attempt to get back in the good graces of her boss, Donald Trump, and to feed into his obsession about losing the 2020 election.
Hey, Joseph.
That
Hey,
is at least some
Cynthia.
of the speculation up here.
Hey, Don.
That's interesting. There
Mansour.
has been talk in, I guess, some of the more conspiratorial corners of the internet and MAGA world that the capture of the Venezuelan president would lead to him admitting or revealing evidence about how Venezuela was able to target and manipulate ballots through like Dominion, et cetera, voting booths, voting machines.
They're going too far.
Do you have any reason to believe that that wrinkle is part of why Tulsi Gabbard might be in Georgia?
I can tell you this.
They in trouble.
All of this speculation has been investigated.
Stop lying.
Is there a hypothetical case that new information can come about, or is it potentially, as your reporter said, some of the conspiracy theorists had suddenly say there was a Italian satellite that was beaming in, stuff that I'm not even sure Laura Loomer, the crazy right-wing troll,
Stop lying.
it's the kind of stuff she would advocate.
Time out for
But
lying.
I've had no indication, and in a normal administration, as somebody that was very involved in election interference and frankly gave the first Trump presidency kudos for running a safe election in 2020, if there was some new information in a normal administration, they would have an obligation to report that to the Intelligence Committee, of which I'm vice chair and was formerly the chair.
They over there
Donald Trump in
stealing.
Davos talking about the 2020 election.
I love an amazing
He
lip
over there
product
stealing.
that does more than just give me a bit of
He ain't
color. This is
reporting
the
nothing.
only lip product that can.
It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. people will soon be prosecuted for what they did.
Man.
It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It's a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections.
Are you concerned that this raid on
That's
the,
all he
the
can
search
say.
of the Fulton
There's
County
nothing
Elections
to him
Office,
other than that.
that it's going to be used as a pretext come 26 or even 28?
Yes. The first few months of the second Trump administration, when people asked me this question, I wasn't that concerned. I am more concerned now. It is absolutely critical that we protect the integrity of our elections. Make sure these are still one state and local.
Well, then how did he win? So was it rigged when he won?
To help states get up to snuff. Are they so politicized now that they could undermine states' efforts? There's a ton of questions that I never thought we'd have to ask in this country. And, maybe this week, as we're seeing the White House and some of the Republicans find their spine about the abuses that are taking place with ICE, maybe some folks will be willing to stand up for our democracy. But I can tell you from the Intelligence Committee standpoint, and making sure we monitor the foreign interference and then also make sure any other activity, we got to stay on it. And one of the things that I think we need to make sure that is included in any kind of ICE reform is we don't want these roving patrols of ICE agents suddenly showing up at polling stations during primaries or general elections. We may have a major vote in Virginia about redistricting.
He is a real buffoon.
That's got to be a reform as well. The level of intimidation that the feds could bring on voters all across the country, if it doesn't worry you, it should.
So is that on the table right now as well? Let's talk about DHS funding. Is that on the table as a reform necessary for Democrats to vote for a funding bill?
I and others have added that. We
Don't
talked
fund
about
that
roving
crap.
patrols. When we're getting rid of roving patrols, saying not only knocking on people's houses without a warrant, but coming to a place like a polling station shouldn't be that far. We don't know what's going to happen. I think the ball is now in the Republican court. Matter of fact, they could only get 45 of the necessary 60 votes to move forward. So they got an issue. If we can split off the other 5 bills, which are 85-90% of the additional government spending, and then take some brief period of time to get these ICE reforms in place. I want to look at that. But that's what's being discussed.
Crazy.
We don't get to put that bill down. We don't get to put that plan down. It's up to the Senate Majority Leader and Donald Trump. There's indication that the White House is supportive, but I'm in a trust but verify mode. Until we see it, until the bill's on the floor, until I can see what the reform package is going to look like, I got to see those first.
Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot lately, trust but verify. You talked about your Republican colleagues a moment ago, and I do think this is an interesting moment. We are hearing more forceful pushback, and it's usually from someone who's retiring or one of the more likely voices or usual suspects like Lisa Murkowski or Susan Collins. And yes, we're hearing it from those folks. But you just mentioned they can only get 45 votes for this DHS or this full spending package. That means that there were Republicans that are not signing on. Do you think that we are at a tipping point?
Some of those Republicans, well, I would hope so, although I thought we were here many times. Before I get too excited about some of the Republicans who voted against it, these were the kind of far-right Republicans who talk about things but then never want to vote for any government spending. So I'm not sure we can read too much into that. But let's see. One of the reasons why I think this is changing, in a weird way, I mean, this is just pure speculation, the fact that the storm has kept, 2/3 of Americans kind of in their houses for the last couple of days, even folks who supported Trump.
And that was a
chances are they
man-made.
saw the video. So when the
That was
Kristi
systematic. That wasn't even nature.
Kind of, the goon squad folks that have been talked about come out and say that Mr. Preti, Alex Preti, was somehow a terrorist. They can see that's not the case. Their eyes are not
They
lying.
thought it was going to make a protesters leave.
Veterans Affairs nurse who took care of wounded veterans. I think that helped drive home the point. And I'll just give you a quick little Virginia-based effort. Hanover County is a suburb outside of Richmond. It's a very, very conservative county. Last night, because of an overwhelming turnout of voters in Hanover County. The local county board voted 6-1 to not have ICE build a facility in their jurisdiction. That is a sea change from 6 months ago, and I think it shows that even folks who supported President Trump are now saying, particularly on this issue, they don't want an agency running amok, and there needs to be guardrails. And the idea is that Americans are getting shot in the streets. What happens in Minneapolis can happen in Richmond or Norfolk. It can happen in Albany. It can happen in Indianapolis. You name the city where Trump and this rogue agency at this point could be detailed next.
Yeah, it has. That video of Alex Preddy does have some of the hallmarks of what has traditionally been, a real changer, a real driver in a change of public opinion, which is that everybody saw it. I think you're right to point out that everyone was inside, or a lot of us were inside because of the snow, that it was easy to understand. It was easy to see what he was doing, and then very easy to understand that the administration was lying about what he was doing, Alex Preddy. That in itself goes a long way to piercing that in what had seemed to be an impenetrable bubble regarding what the administration would try to tell us and what people would believe. Senator Warner.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Katie. No, I was going to say, remember, it does come on top. It does come on top of, the craziness with NATO and Greenland and the question of taking 20% of the fleet off the coast of Venezuela,
John Bonet in the Epstein
oil
file.
tankers. A lot of folks are saying, this is not what I thought we hired this guy for.
That's not what y'all hired him for.
That's a long time.
He lied.
54 patterns, 30,000 products.
He lied to the people who believed him.
The administration backtracking from its early loud claims, like these over the weekend, that agents had acted totally correctly in the killing of Alex Preddy and other recent controversies. Tonight, the story is that they admit there were mistakes. And the new official that Donald Trump just sent to Minnesota, Tom Homan, rejecting the type of Trump defenders, including within the administration, who had been insisting initially that this was all an acceptable operation.
I do not want to hear that everything that's been done here has been perfect. No agency or organization is perfect.
Not perfect. It's a step that shows the pressure is working, and I will show you right now how that is measurable and why it's not the whole story, and we don't take anything from any government simply at face value when they're under this kind of pressure. But the street protests and Democrats using new tools in Washington and in the back room, and sometimes public pressure from a growing group of Republicans, all of this adding up. Republicans see that gunning down Americans is not popular, to say the least. The growing majority of Americans now say ICE has gone too far. This is new polling from none other, if you look in the lower left, than Fox News' polling operation itself. Now, Trump officials are changing their rhetoric, and they're claiming there are changes to the orders for ICE agents. Now, you think about the aggressive and escalating stance they have taken towards citizens on the streets. That's changed. They're now, according to Reuters, instructing ICE agents to only do what Trump on the campaign trail said would be the entire operation, only target immigrants with criminal cases. And they are forbidding other activity. As they're told here in all caps, quote, do not communicate or engage with agitators. Now, that's a written order. It could be changed very soon. It could be leaked or promoted to the press to try to offer something right now. But let's be clear, this written order admits the flawed approach that those agents were taking up until now. And if the administration later waters it down or reverses it, if they think that's the way to go after outrage may have cooled or people move on to other controversies, you remember when we were talking about invading Greenland? Well, this new order will still provide a public written baseline that advocates and others can try to hold these agents to, because just to say the obvious, the job of ICE agents is not to engage with agitators or patrol citizens and communities all day long. That has nothing to do with enforcing immigration customs, which is what ICE does. Republicans know they cannot outrun voters in this year's election, even if they can avoid town halls right now. And the reports are House Republicans fuming about DHS Chief Noem's leadership Dems want to impeach her over the killings and these public safety failures. Remember, when the government comes in and kills people in avoidable ways, whether or not it's ever deemed a murder in an investigation, it's a public safety failure. The government is making things worse, not better. They're leading to Americans' deaths. And these are failures that vulnerable Republicans are aware of, Axios reports, putting them in this painful spot.
Just
Can
lie.
Democrats actually break MAGA Republican loyalty to force, say, a vote on impeaching Noem, on removing her? And then could they even win over enough votes to do so? Asking Republicans to defy Trump? Well, is it possible? We know the answer is yes. That
Release the Epstein files.
situation just happened a few months ago on Epstein. That was an issue where Donald Trump demanded loyalty. But by the time the Democrats built pressure and then forced a House vote, well, we know what happened. By the time it reached the Senate, Trump could not get the Republican leader, who you see on your screen, to even slow the process, to do him a solid. He also couldn't find a single senator to object. So it flew through the Senate, passing unanimously, Trump losing badly. That is a legislative history that haunts the White House's congressional whipping operation. Now, both these issues, of course, have victims.
Yeah, victims. Male and female.
Which do provide major stakes. But to be clear politically here, when I'm talking about how Congress works, the comparison is not that these issues are, quote unquote, similar. The thing that's similar is Donald Trump's weakening grip on congressional Republicans. We know that his congressional wall already cracked. So avoiding a vote to remove Noem is one thing. And the White House asking Republicans to dodge public statements might buy them some time. Asking them to pretend things are okay, you can see some Republicans are saying, we're not going to do that. Others may be a little quiet. Give them a couple days. That's part of politics. Unfortunately, even when there's politics involved in whether we're going to deal with the government killing Americans. But here's the point I'm reminding you tonight. If there is a no confidence vote in Noem's leadership, if Dems could force that by peeling off some Republicans, the same playbook they did on Epstein, well, that's a whole other issue. Because some Republicans are already signaling they want her out, that they could vote to do it. And others, when faced with the no confidence vote, don't exactly want to stand up and put on record, not knowing how many more Americans could be hurt, endangered, illegally detained, or killed, that they are fine with how things are going. Even Tom Homan says he's not fine with it. Now, Democrats are still in the minority, but they can fight. They have other extra tools if they want to use them. And that's, remember, what many Americans have been demanding across what is now this very clearly extreme second term, where Donald Trump's not doing the things he campaigned on. Prices are up. Problems are rampant.
Get ready to take an epic final journey with us.
Because the official trailer for Outlander Season 8.
Yeah, this is totally unacceptable.
He's not just targeting the violent criminals who might have come over from other countries.
He's a violent criminal.
Doing what he said he would do, but he is doing other things that some people underestimated or didn't think he could do. Unleashing these kind of politicized, possibly illegal, definitely violent operations only in places largely where he thinks the opposition is, going off and indicting people he disagrees with, trying to crack elections as we know it. If enough people are under investigation or on trial or imprisoned, it's hard to have free and fair elections. And while anyone can quibble with one or two cases, and we try to report them all fairly, Donald Trump has now put over 14 people under investigation, including 2 members of the Federal Reserve. Nobody seriously thinks this is on the level. Well, what's striking here is that Minnesota has shown how the pressure is working, how people are standing up and showing courage even as they've seen.
Baby, they are out in the cold. Do you hear me? In the cold, freezing cold.
Others gunned down in their very community. These mass protests and civic support groups are showing strength in the cold, strength in numbers, resilience that harkens back to a long American tradition. And that's just in Minnesota. We know there have been protests across all of this past year. They have broken records. The ability to hold these protests is a guardrail that people are using, as I've been reporting, even though we also have to tragically report that this government has tried very directly, admitted an agenda against the First Amendment, against peaceful protests, with federal agents menacing people, threatening them in broad daylight, and yet the people are marching. That effort, along with the particular way that facts and journalism and the terrible videos of some of these incidents about what the Trump agents are doing, has driven up the opposition I showed you. Trump's ICE plans are opposed by 59% of the public, and that's in Fox News' accounting. That's plus or minus 3. You could call it 62%. It's only getting worse. And these are people that include, statistically, folks who have been Trump voters in the past. Pressure works.
It busts pipes.
Breaking this hour on Capitol Hill with less than 30 hours before a government shutdown, MS Now reports that a deal is circulating among senators to pass 5 spending bills that would partially fund the government. A separate 2-week stopgap bill would also be included to temporarily fund the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, while senators negotiate a broader deal that would include new restrictions on ICE. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. He serves on the Homeland Security Committee.
Senator, thank you for being with us. Maybe you can tell us at this hour, where do negotiations stand? We do understand that this agreement, if there is one, would still need to pass the House. That could be difficult for some conservatives. The House is also not currently in session. Is the government going to partially shut down tomorrow?
There is a deal, so far as we know, Simone, and there may be a vote on it in the Senate as early as tonight. It would give us an opportunity to impose real restraints and reform on the Department of Homeland Security and, in particular, ICE, but would avoid a government shutdown. And the House can pass this measure before midnight tomorrow and avoid that government shutdown, but still enable us to take strong, meaningful, enduring legislative action, not relying on Trump executive orders. No talk. We want action. And we fought down, as a matter of fact, the amount of time that we would have to arrive at these reforms from a longer time to just 2 weeks.
Senator, the reality in this moment is driven as much by the politics of a potential yet another government shutdown, but also by the realities of the killing of 2 American citizens in Minnesota, the aggressive foreign policy of this president with respect to Venezuela. And all of these things have narratively worked against the administration. But more importantly, it's worked narratively against your fellow Republicans in the Senate, who are worried about their particular positions, yes, but also their reelection, those who are up this year. I would say that there's probably a brood, I like to call them a little brood, of Republican senators who are ready to make this deal. Word this evening is that seems to have been taking shape. Senator Thune is saying, well, I got to get in front of all of my members, but we're doing the stroke. Are you confident Republicans are going to be in play in a way in which they're going to have the votes that you're talking about counted on and counted for tonight or tomorrow whenever it happens?
I'm never confident about anything in the United States Congress, but I am hopeful.
Fair point.
Because they're hearing the same anger and outrage from the country that I am hearing, and frankly, that I feel. And rather than making this issue about a government shutdown, about failing to pay military families or making air passengers safe, we're taking off the table the government shutdown. And we're going to, frankly, force real reform. And it has to be a lot more than putting lipstick on a pig, to borrow your very colorful analogy. It has to be real, lasting, enduring legislative reform that applies the same standards and practices that constrain any local or state police. When I was Attorney General of the state of Connecticut for 20 years, there was a right of action against state or local police. They had to wear identification. They couldn't wear masks. They had to wear body cameras. And the idea of their being above the law, reckless and lawless, the way ICE is, would have been unimaginable. And my Republican colleagues have to just look at their local law enforcement and listen to their constituents, and they will come around to these reforms. There's nothing novel or original about them.
Senator, part of those reforms is reckoning with the leadership that has put these policies in place. Earlier today, Leader Jeffries was talking about Stephen Miller. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say.
Stephen Miller is the architect of Donald Trump's toxic immigration policies. He's a stone cold liar. He's a bigot. He's a hateful individual.
Can y'all hit the like button, please?
Unelected interloper. He needs to go as well.
An interloper.
Detective Alex Cross, MPD's resident genius. Are you familiar with Lance Duran?
Will you fund DHS if Nome and Miller are still in place?
I'm going to work to remove them because these violations of rights come from the top. You know, the secret memo that I revealed last week, done by the acting director of ICE, shows that these violations of rights, the physical assaults, the knocking down doors in homes and smashing into homes, arresting and detaining people without judicial warrant, these policies come from the top, from Nome, from others like Steve Miller, and I will not vote for another penny of funding for DHS unless there is meaningful institutional reform, practices and policies that restrain this agency in a meaningful way. It's more than just one person. Although I agree with everything that Leader Jeffries has just said about Steve Miller, removing Steve Miller fails to remove Donald Trump. And we need to recognize that as long as there are other people around him who would advocate the same lawlessness, these policies will continue. And, you know, we're going to continue to spotlight these issues. Next Tuesday, I will have a hearing that involves the relatives of Renee Good. They will come to the Capitol along with other victims of shooting. These kinds of violations of rights, the physical assaults, the brutality, are not limited to Minneapolis. They span the country.
So then what do those meaningful reforms look like, Senator? Because I think Americans listening to you would say, we agree. But one, what are they? And two, how do you enforce them? Because I hear you saying to Alicia's question that you agree with Jeffries that Miller and Nome have to go. You yourself have called for Kristi Nome to resign and step down. But in the event that they don't, you're saying that many of the same heinous policies will still be in place. So I think just a layperson listening is like, well then what is Congress here for? What are you all going to do?
We're going to shut down the Department of Homeland Security if there are no meaningful reforms and restraints, if there are no changes in the people who run this agency, not a penny more. We have 2 weeks to achieve these reforms. They wanted a longer period of time. We fought them down to 2 weeks. But to go to your question directly, I would vote to impeach Kristi Nome, along with others in that agency, and I hope that movement will continue. I've said she has to be fired or resign or be impeached. We need a house cleaning in this agency.
That's clear.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a big challenge here, Senator, to sort of piggyback on Simone's point is when you look at the two individuals involved, Kristi Nome is a Senate-confirmed appointee of the president. Stephen Miller's not. He's just a presidential appointment. He works at the pleasure directly of the president. So the idea of getting him out of the mix really kind of goes to your broader point about others being in that space as well that still will continue to push these policies. So then you are left, I would assume, with no other choice than to say to the administration, because this department is as rogue as it is, it must stop. And if you don't stop it, we will, is essentially what you're saying. Because you're not, let's be honest, Stephen Miller's not going anywhere. You can't fire Stephen Miller. Only the president can. You can impeach Kristi Noem, all right? So you can get half of that apple, but the other rotten part
You
is
haven't
still
heard
there.
the Sasha,
So you're still going to have to leverage that against the funding that this administration wants for DHS.
And we have to stop that funding. If
you haven't heard it yet?
This agency is out of control, a paramilitary force like we have never seen in the history of the United States. It was exactly what the founders said should not be tolerated when they passed the Fourth Amendment that precludes smashing into homes without a judicial warrant. We need to require judicial warrants for those arrests.
I'm trying to pronounce your name at 1 o'clock,
Should be required in the 10th
1:30 in the
Amendment, as
morning.
you pointed out earlier, giving state and local officials the right to prosecute murders when they occur by ICE agents.
You haven't heard Sasha Riley tape yet?
Immediate investigation, independent of the DHS, and body cameras on, masks off, unmarked cars ended, and the kinds of quotas that we see, which are an institutional cause for even the best of the ICE agents, even the honest ones, to start making these mass sweeps and arrests. The overhaul of this agency has to be legislative, not relying on executive action.
Women over 40, you need this in your makeup bag. The Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara will seriously change your makeup.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading.
To Ghislaine Maxwell's claim about 25 men with secret settlements, 4 named co-conspirators, that's from the first attempted prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein that ended up in a non-prosecution agreement. All of those names, everything about that is in the Epstein files that have not yet been released according to the law that you got passed.
Lawrence, the biggest lie in the Epstein cover-up is that Epstein and Maxwell were the only 2 people who abused and raped 1,200 plus survivors.
Now, we would certainly have more information about the other co-conspirators if, the Trump administration actually released the Epstein files, which they are required to do by law since Congress has passed legislation requiring them to do it. But nonetheless, Ghislaine Maxwell has claimed in court that 25 associates of Jeffrey Epstein's reached secret settlements to avoid ever getting prosecuted. Cenk, your thoughts?
Yeah. So, the idea that our government and our media tried to sell us that Epstein did it by himself and along with Maxwell, you really, I mean, not only would you have to be naive to believe that, you'd all have to be a borderline moron, to be honest. But yet almost everyone in Washington is pretending that that's the case. And so I love that Ro Khanna and Tom Massey, we've got 2 champions in Congress. We've got and 533 people on the fence.
Considering she's a rapist. Anyway, Maxwell claimed that substantial new evidence has emerged from related civil actions, government disclosures, investigative reports, and documents demonstrating constitutional violations that undermine the fairness of her proceedings. If I had any position of power, I would go out of my way to ensure that the system were more unfair to her. But Courthouse News Service published Maxwell's entire petition last December, and it's now.
So that's part of the story here. Apparently, Maxwell knows who those 25 are.
Absolutely.
I don't know what other favors we're going to do for her to get that information, but it doesn't matter if we have the information. Since Epstein is an Israeli agent, we're never going to prosecute any of those.
Can y'all hear now?
Introducing the Score Bet for Sunday, Monday, or any day that ends in Y. We're with you every game day with all the promos and player props you need. $100 in bonus bets if you win your first.
So here's what you need to know. In December of last year, Maxwell submitted a self-represented petition to overturn her criminal convictions. I guess
existing in Club Med. The Club Med of prisons isn't good enough, even though she should have been in a high security place, considering she's a rapist. Anyway, Maxwell claimed that substantial new evidence has emerged from related civil actions, government disclosures, investigative reports, and documents demonstrating constitutional violations that undermine the fairness of her proceedings. If I had any position of power, I would go out of my way to ensure that the system were more unfair to her. But Courthouse News Service published Maxwell's entire petition last December, and it's now making headlines because of the extraordinary claim that 25 of Epstein's pals escaped justice. Reached settlements with Epstein's associates, and Maxwell's filing reads verbatim: new evidence reveals that there were 25 men with which the plaintiff lawyers reached secret settlements that could equally be considered as co-conspirators. And keep in mind, it is unclear whether the 25 men who reached these secret settlements also reached deals with the feds, shielding them from prosecution.
But no, they go
and there's
into
more.
different
So the
items.
filing also claims that 4 of the notorious financiers'
steal
employees were
kids.
mentioned in a non-prosecution agreement. And in the sex trafficking indictment Epstein faced before he killed himself in jail, allegedly.
He's still alive,
But
yeah.
they were never charged. So Maxwell claims that she does not know the identities
alive.
of those individuals, and that if she did, she would tell authorities. I wouldn't trust a single word that comes out of this woman's mouth. Let's just put it that way. And of the, this is relevant because on February 9th, Maxwell will sit for deposition before the House Oversight Committee, which I'm looking forward to. Hopefully we learn some interesting information from
She's
that
a
deposition.
liar.
But Cenk, your thoughts?
Yeah, so again, 2 parts to this. First of all, of course, Ghislaine knows who the 25 are. How did she know there's 25?
I know, seriously.
Why not 24 or 26? You seem to know it pretty well.
They loved her long time.
Guys, every part of this story is a joke on the American people, mainly perpetrated by our politicians, but to some degree working with establishment media. So, number one, Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, should be in maximum security. She's one of the biggest child traffickers in American history. She's in the Club Fed, and she gets to run the place. Everybody else has to go in their cells, and she gets to have dinner by herself, etc. She's like Pablo Escobar in a Colombian prison, and running the place. It's a freaking joke. You know why? Because the Israelis run us. And so that's why. Her dad, by the way, is Robert Maxwell. And no one in television tells you this because they want to protect Israel. Robert Maxwell was the biggest spy in Israeli history. He stole American nuclear secrets. That's why they have the bomb now.
And he published our schools, our public school systems textbooks for social studies.
Which lied to us about how Israel was the victim in 48 and 67, when that's not remotely true. They did aggressive wars to seize land. They ethnically cleansed 750,000 Palestinians in 1948. So what you're seeing in Gaza now, they already did in 48. They attacked all their neighbors in 67, but we're lied
guess it's time.
to over and over again by our media and by our politicians because they're in the back pockets of a foreign country. So then you turn to justice here at home. And our government constantly tells us, no, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican administration, you are never going to get justice for those girls. We're going to hide the people who did it forever because the people who did it are the people bribing us. It's not rocket science. It's super obvious. First of all, campaign contributions are legalized bribes. And the Israelis, in that same fashion, bribed 94%.
Oh, my head is hurting.
Of Congress. So they have Congress completely. That's why even when Obama objected to Netanyahu coming, Congress said no. He's our real president. They had him come over and they did standing ovation after standing ovation for him because they're like, there's our dear leader. Where's our bribes? Where's our bribes? The greatest people betraying us are not the Israelis.
It's the U.S.
It's our own politicians who work for Israel. and who say, oh, you want to rape our children? Go ahead. We'll cover it up. We'll pretend that you're not an Israeli agent. Go look at the drop site news articles. Epstein tried to procure cyber weapons for Israel. He tried to get America to bomb Syria and Iran on behalf of Israel. He set up meetings with the Israeli prime minister and Putin and other world leaders.
He normalized relations between the UAE and Israel. He even played a role in the Iran-Contra.
Yes, because the Israeli agents, Mossad was also involved in Iran-Contra.
It's crazy.
So that brings Epstein into it.
Yeah.
And so since Epstein and Maxwell are the most obvious Israeli agents in human history, all of media and all of our politicians have to lie to you, because otherwise how could they serve Israel? So this is the nonsense that's going on in our country. We have to free ourselves from this. We have to have liberation. And the way that you do that, and when you stop being occupied by Israel, is Operation Consequences. You have to vote them out. We're totally nonviolent. We're for peace, okay? So all consequences means is, in a democracy, you have political consequences. So go to operationconsequences.com. Any politician that from this day forward gives a single dollar to Israel, vote them out, because they're not your representatives. They're Israel's representatives.
Absolutely.
And if they're not joining Ro Khanna and Tom Massey in demanding justice for Americans, that means they're traitors and they work for Israel. So vote them all out. OperationConsequences.com. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true. But it does keep you updated on our live shows.
40 years. That's a
My head is hurting. I keep asking y'all to hit the like button, and y'all act like y'all can't do it. What is that about? Why is that so hard? Can I get y'all to double tap the face of your screen or hit the three dots? 1:30 a.m. meltdown. Lord.
Donald Trump is having a psychotic meltdown at 1:30 a.m. He is attacking Alex Preti when Trump's ICE and Border Patrol Gestapo murdered Preti. Here is what Donald Trump just posted, further defaming Alex Preti. How depraved is this? This is a real message Donald Trump posted at 1:30 a.m. East Coast time. He goes, agitator and perhaps insurrectionist Alex Preti's stock has gone way down with the just released video of him screaming and spitting in the face
like
of a very calm and under control ICE officer, and then crazily kicking in a new and very expensive government vehicle, so hard and violent, in fact, that the taillight broke off in pieces. It was quite a display of abuse and anger for all to see. Crazed and out of control, the ICE officer was calm and cool, not an easy thing to do under the circumstances. Make America great again. Can you get more depraved than this? As Alex Preti, who's courageous, who is a hero, who was an ICU nurse at the VA, who was doing nothing wrong at the time he was murdered in cold blood by Donald Trump's ICE, Gestapo, and then afterwards defamed by Trump's regime with Kristi and Stephen Miller saying he was involved in a premeditated massacre and he was a domestic terrorist, which was all proven to be absolutely false, as his friends and family are grieving for him. Donald Trump at 1:30 a.m. Friday morning, just posted moments ago, calls him an agitator and perhaps an insurrectionist and says his stock has gone way down. Can you get more vile and despicable? And I mean it. It's beyond the 25th Amendment. I mean, it's beyond impeachment. I mean, Donald Trump should be prosecuted for war, for crimes against humanity, and just a war on decency and empathy. Then Donald Trump starts posting videos and photos of himself doing a MAGA symphony, and Donald Trump goes, my new MAGA symphony, and then he posts this unhinged video saying that he was ordained by God, and then
the devil is a lie.
And Donald Trump goes, my new MAGA symphony, and then he posts this unhinged video saying that he was ordained by God. of himself doing a MAGA symphony, and Donald Trump goes, "My new MAGA symphony," and then he posts this unhinged video saying that he was ordained by God, and then he says, "Let the man fucking cook and shut the fuck up." This is a real post by Donald Trump saying, "Shut the fuck up." This is a real post that he just made.
President Trump has been back in office for a year now. It has been rough, y'all. The Trump administration has created chaos, trampled.
Here, play this clip.
This is what you hoped for. This is what you prayed for. This is what you voted for. So why are you questioning every decision he makes now that he's back in office?
I see it, loser.
God didn't save his life so he could make mistakes. He knows what he's doing.
And then as he's defaming Preti, as he's making posts saying, "Shut the F up," doing another post with a new MAGA symphony, he's now threatening another 50% tariffs against Canada. In addition to the 100% tariffs he threatened last week. Remember last weekend? He said 100% tariffs against Canada if they go through with a trade deal with China, which he previously said he was okay with. And now he's saying, based on the fact that Canada is illegally certifying Gulf Streams, and he lists different ones, he said that we are hereby going to tariff Canada 50% on any and all aircraft sold to the United States of America. And then he goes on to say that he will then decertify the Bombardier Canadian planes. What in the world is going on? Then this evening, Donald Trump was at the Melania premiere, and while he was there, Melania and he were asked, what would happen if you and Donald Trump didn't meet? Here, play this clip.
I asked your husband if he would be the man he is today if he had never met you. What do you think?
Well, we will all be in different places, I guess. Right?
We do like the way it worked out. So.
Correct.
And Mrs. Trump, what do you want?
Yeah, Donald Trump looked absolutely thrilled to be there with Melania. Here, play this clip.
To them, and what is something that you want people to take away from this film?
They miles apart.
Here in this film, they will see a lot of emotion, passion, grief, sadness, celebration, love. So that's the message for the.
And Trump
Are
was
we gonna see her being a hooker?
Giving your wife $40 million and $35 million for promotion, $75 million for the worst movie ever. And then Brett Ratner, who's been accused of all these horrible things as well, is the director of this despicable and grotesque film. What do you make of that, Donald? Here, play this clip.
I want to see that also.
And Mr. President, what do you say to those that are critical of the fact that Amazon paid $40 million to acquire the rights of this movie?
Well, I think they'd have to go and ask President Obama, who got paid a lot of money and hasn't done anything. So I think they probably have to go because if you take a look at others, they've been paid a lot of money. But this is somebody, Melania, who really produced, and she's done a great thing. This is a very important piece of work.
What does Obama have to do?
Of course, he has to blame former President Obama. Then Donald Trump, earlier in the day, didn't realize that RFK Jr. was standing right next to him. Here, play this clip.
Initiative, Catherine Burgham. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Where's Bobby? Bobby? Hello, Bobby. Come here, come here. I love Bobby. He's doing a great job, Catherine. All right?
And then Trump was falling asleep when Doug Burgum's wife was talking. Here, play this clip.
These stories matter because they are not isolated. They reflect the reality of the over 190 million Americans. That's half our nation.
Oh, yeah. Well, all of this was taking place. Donald Trump sued his own government. He sued his own IRS for $10 billion plus punitive damages. So about $50 billion, because punitive damages could be 3 to 5 times the damages. So Donald Trump's now going to steal $50 billion of your taxpayer money, suing his own Treasury Department, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, his own IRS, which is our money, because he said that his tax returns were leaked in 2019, and that has destroyed his reputation. This is a psychopath. Like, do we realize what a psychopath he is? And he's done all of this stuff tonight, suing his own government for $10 billion and going to make the taxpayers pay him $10 to $50 billion. By the way, every other president released their tax returns publicly. that's caused you reputational damage. Why? Because people learn that you don't pay taxes. Here's Laura Ingraham on state regime media announcing this. Here, play this clip.
A Fox News alert: President Trump is suing the IRS now for $10 billion for allegedly leaking his tax returns.
Okay, I need for y'all to come in hitting the like button. Double tap the face of the screen if you're listening on your phone device. Hit those three dots at the top, please. It's three dots at the top corner right. It's 180 people in here. Come on. Hit the like button. Tap it. It's free. It's just 2 taps.
And moments ago on the red carpet for the premiere of Melania's new movie, he dropped this bombshell.
Dave, will you be announcing your Fed chair pick next week?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Oh.
And do you know who you picked?
I do. Otherwise, I'll have to go to work very quickly. No, I'll be announcing the Fed chair tomorrow morning.
Wow, more on it.
I just go back to that post he made at 1:30 a.m. on Friday morning that he just made, calling Alex Pretty an agitator and insurrectionist. If this doesn't rile you up, if this doesn't hit you at the core, then you have no empathy, because how sick is this? I was going to go to sleep for the night. I was in my bed and I read this and I came back here right away because I have to share with you the thoughts of what I'm feeling. Oh, and then tonight Donald Trump says that China's going to take away ice hockey from Canada. Here, play this clip.
Mr. President,
go ahead.
Mr. President, what do you think about the UK getting into business with China? Keir Starmer is in Beijing.
Well, it's very dangerous for them to do that, and it's even more dangerous, I think, for Canada to get into business with China. Canada's not doing well. They're doing very poorly. And you can't look at China as the answer. I know China very well. I know President Xi's a friend of mine. I know him very well, but that's a big hurdle to go over when you get Canada. The first thing they're going to do is say you're not allowed to play ice hockey anymore. That's not good. Canada's not going to allow that.
So utterly despicable right here. And I'll just leave you with this. As Donald Trump, remember after Ilhan Omar was attacked the other day during a town hall she was holding by a MAGA maniac, riled up by Donald Trump with Trump's despicable rhetoric. She was attacked. Remember, the guy had the syringe. And then Donald Trump said, basically, she made it up, and then it was another Ilhan Omar fraud or something despicable like that after she was physically attacked him. Remember when Nancy Pelosi's husband was almost murdered and Donald Trump made up that that Pelosi's husband was involved in a gay relationship with the murderer, just and that he deserved it, and then would mock the guy during speeches that he almost got murdered. These people are sick. By the way, here's what Ilhan Omar had to say about Donald Trump. Here, play this clip.
So when he claims it's staged, you say?
Well, I mean, this is also somebody who was talking about me in his town hall in Iowa, and then seems to exhibit some sort of dementia when he says he doesn't think about me. Maybe it is time for for the 25th Amendment to be invoked, because he certainly cannot remember what he said and has done an hour ago.
There you have it. Let me know what you think. Disgusting. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. The truth.
Okay, I'm gonna give y'all one more since y'all can't hit the like button. Yeah, Okay, let me go here. I don't know what they say.
The auto worker at the Ford F-150 plant wasn't lying.
So for people who didn't see it, okay.
Go ahead, say it again.
No, I wasn't sure you were going to show the clip. I was just going to say what you're referring to that happened at the Ford factory. So this is Trump at the Ford plant, or at a Ford plant, and apparently this is how he's going to deal with this heckler. And the heckler calls him pedophile protector.
Mm-hmm.
And he is such a small little man that the president of the United States can't handle just a heckler and let it go. He has to respond and curse out and tell this guy to fuck off, the heckler. This is what the president does in response to a heckler. Only
You can't whoop nobody.
Not
but
even
kids.
accusing him of being a pedophile, just a pedophile protector. But apparently that in and of itself, I guess that hit a nerve, right? Or is that to me, that's the kind of thing that you would maybe only be so upset about if it were true.
Well, that's the thing that I found so perplexing about his reaction in such a volatile way. It's one thing if he called him a pedophile and Trump just lost it. He's like, I'm not a pet. Like, it instinctively would say, like, I'm totally not a pedophile. I didn't do any of that stuff. But he reacted that way to being called a pedophile.
Because that's Sasha Riley.
Exactly.
Which he clearly is. He's a pedophile.
If not more so. So this brings us to the Sasha Riley story, yes?
Oh, not exactly. It's coming to that. But I want people to remember that this was, I hope you're getting my stuff, Colin, because I know that the Robert Morris clip is quick. So if you've got that, just let's get that up there so people can see. So as I said, Robert Morris was his spiritual advisor. This is Trump. Well, I mean, who is going to be Trump's spiritual advisor? You know?
A PDFer?
That's absurd that he even would have a spiritual advisor. He has no spirit.
You know, the token for that matter. But so he was convicted. He was convicted of sexual abuse of a 12-year-old.
Nice.
6 months in prison. You want to talk about a sweetheart deal? Well, if he goes to a regular prison, he might not last 6 months, and may that be so.
I'm just happy that it is over. I feel good about it.
6 months, and may that be so.
I'm just happy that it is over. I feel good about it. It's behind us. What does this feel like?
You look like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I don't know that word. Well, so that's the woman that was his accuser. And so given that she's
12.
an adult, clearly an adult, this woman has been trying to get justice for a very long time, is what that says to me. And that's just, yeah.
But doesn't it also say, and one of the main reasons why so few people end up coming forward is that you put your life on the line, you go after somebody powerful, you convict them, and then they get a slap on the wrist. This guy
when you know the right people or have the right information on people.
Well, that's the whole point. That's the whole point about climbing the ladder. She spent her entire life trying to do this. I think it is beyond insane how anyone who thinks we have a justice system, we don't.
We don't.
We have a tiered justice system. That's the way I would describe it. We have a tiered justice system that is for the commoners, not for people with power. People with power are able to walk away And even though this lady Cindy, who was his accuser, can say that I can move on now with my life, but he took so much from her.
She was 12
She was
years
12
old.
years old.
Yeah.
That ruins people's lives. It ruins their lives.
Completely. And I can only hope that there is some justice coming behind those prison walls, but we all know he's probably going to get stuck in a country club. So,
or maybe he'll get lucky and they'll just fly him back to Epstein's Island and he could be there with Epstein. Who knows?
You never know. But I bring this up because now we're going to transition into a story that I don't see anybody covering, and that is Sasha Riley. Now,
I forwarded this to you because Peter, you didn't know of this.
No, I haven't been paying as close of attention upon it. We're going to try to get Sean Atwood on the podcast, guys. We're working on that as we speak. This is a very disturbing audio, so I want you guys to just be aware.
Wait, I don't know that we can play this without getting like serious demonetization.
No, we can play audio. You can't play video. But this is just be aware. Just be aware that you're going to hear some things that you're not going to like. So this is Sasha Riley talking about his experience with Jeffrey Epstein.
But I can tell you that
no, with Trump
are extraordinarily horrible.
Colin, I need you to do the first video first. This is the second video. You got to let me know that this is not the right one. This is the first video. That's the second video. Here we go.
This gloss is the reason why I don't deal with sticky or dry lips anymore. This is the Empower Gloss Ultra Glossy Lip Serum.
To kind of recap what we were just talking about, one of the first memories, or one of the first memories that seared itself into my consciousness because of being what I perceived as a threat as a child, was watching Donald Trump kill a litter of puppies. He did it in a variety of ways. As I stood there, they made me stand there, and he would harm or kill the puppy and then look to see what my reaction was. And in my child's brain, that registered because I viewed him as somebody more dangerous than my parents, and I knew that they would hurt me. So in my ability to reason, my reasoning was if they were worse people than my parents, that they were somebody that might kill me. So that is why he was so, that's why I most of the stuff I just tried to forget. But with him, with Andy, and with Jim, I remembered them because
Andy Biggs,
the truth
Jim
is
Jordan.
they scared me.
Yeah.
Do we know who Andy or Jim are?
I'm not sure who they are.
You not?
I'm honestly not sure.
So basically, Trump killed puppies, is what he said.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't say how.
That's why he always says
just to see his reaction and to do that in front of his then 12-year-old child.
Well, that's the thing that again, when people talk about things like Pizzagate and Seth Rich and all of these stories, and what I would just tell people is that there is a dark side of society that people just don't want to know about. That's why people are very defensive and they don't want to hear it. And part of the reason they don't want to hear it is because the depths of which this goes is very deep and very disturbing. When people have that much wealth and that much power, they basically want to test the limits in terms of how far they can take things. That's basically what it's about. It's not about whether or not people want to have relations with children or whether they want to traffic children. This is exciting. This sounds interesting. It's not my cup of tea, like spirit cooking, but what the hell? No one's going to touch me. I'm above reproach, so why not? Give it a try. I could at least say that I did it.
I'm gonna go to sleep. I didn't get the likes up. I
It's
keep
not
asking
jumping out
y'all
of
to
an
hit the
airplane,
like
but
button.
in their mind, that's
Double tap the
it's the
face of your
equivalent for what a
screen
normal person
and
would
hit the
consider
3 dots at the
living
top.
dangerously. This is how
I'm
they
finna
want to
go
live
to sleep.
dangerously. They want to harm people. They want to harm puppies. Oh boy, let me tell you, I would make it a vendetta to get him because of that. That alone is like that's.
Can y'all not hear me? I asked y'all to hit the like button. Hit the 3 dots at the top corner right on your either your phone or your computer.